Hello. Thanks for joining me again. I am changing a little bit where I'm recording today. I wanted to do it by my Christmas tree that we got this past week. I enjoyed the responses that I got last week, so I appreciate that. Please send more feedback and more thoughts my way. I wanted to read the next chapter of my book and keep playing with video and sound editing and learning new things. So this chapter it takes place about 2 months after that Fight Club chapter that I read you last week, and is a different character. The girl ran, feet slipping and sliding through dead pine needles and cones in the soft dirt. Crap, 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 she snarled at herself as she fought to get purchase. She pumped her arms, bursting past grasping tree branches. Blood was running down her arm from a jagged tear on her shoulder. A howl burst out of the woods behind her, giving her a fresh burst of adrenaline that drove her even faster through the thick brush. She risked a glance behind her, trying to get a look at the things that pursued her. There was a sharp crack, a branch snapping. Was that a shadow behind that? She tripped and toppled into a small ravine, rolling over rocks and gnarled roots. She slammed into a water-worn boulder, her knee colliding with an awful crack. She nearly screamed, but forced herself to bite her tongue instead. The stream she lay in was ice cold, but it ran into a bed of thick grass and tangled bushes. There was an opening that might just be big enough for her. She pulled herself along the stream bed, grabbing up a fist-sized stone as she went. After the initial pain, her knee had gone almost instantly numb, a combination of fear and cold water keeping it manageable. But she was sure something was wrong with it. She squeezed herself into cover just as the sound of several feet came to the edge of the ravine. There were strange, animal-like grunts as her pursuers searched about for her, then a crumbling as one of them slid down the stream bed. She pushed herself deeper into the brush, water flowing over and around all but her head. As her pursuer moved into view, she shivered, and not just from the cold. Her hunters, who howled and snarled like rabid dogs, were human, naked and feral, but human. She waited, freezing and terrified, as several of them converged around the first. They were all lean, almost emaciated, with scars all over their bodies. It looked like they spent a lot of time tearing into each other with tooth and nail. One closest to her had a crescent-shaped bite wound on his shoulder that hadn't quite healed. They were mostly men, but there were a few women as well, all of them leaning forward slightly, as if they were on the verge of falling to all fours. Her breath clutched spastically when one of them turned towards her hiding spot. She was sure that they'd be able to hear her heartbeat pounding away. In her own ears, it seemed as if a massive drum was sending its booming vibrations through her veins. But somehow, they didn't see her, and the pack moved away, following the stream uphill. She waited until the last of them loped out of view. Then she couldn't bear the cold water anymore. She slid out of the brush as quietly as she could, then flopped onto a sun-warmed stone on the bank. Water sluiced off her as she shook herself like a dog. She rested for a moment, then carefully got to her feet, testing her weight on her hurt leg. The pain drove a tingling numbness up her leg that made black spots float in front of her eyes, but when that passed, it held her weight, and she could at least limp along. She leaned against a boulder, gasping as she tried to get her bearings. Her first instinct was to go in the exact opposite way the hunters had gone, but she didn't know where that would take her. When they chased her from the trail, she got completely turned around. After dodging around trees and through the heavy brush, she could have very easily gone completely in a circle. She pushed off the boulder and brushed her hair out of her face. The important thing right then was to keep moving. The hunters might backtrack this way as soon as they realized they weren't following her anymore. Get some distance, then find the way back, she muttered to herself. She pulled herself up the side of the ravine. Her fingernails were already broken and dirty, but now her palms and the pads of her fingers got scraped and bruised. Just that morning, her nails had been perfectly manicured. Now there was barely a hint of the light blue nail polish. She got out of the ravine and made her way through the woods, jumping at every little sound. With each step, the pain in her leg flashed, and she wanted to curl up in a ball around it and cry. But she couldn't. She had no idea what the strange, wild hunters wanted with her, but she was sure she'd rather take the pain in her leg. So she walked on, gradually making her way down the mountain until she could hear the faintest sounds from town, and the trees looked almost familiar. Almost there, she muttered to herself. She wouldn't be able to run in the cross-country meet that Saturday, but that hardly seemed to matter anymore. She finally stepped out on the highway going into town. She stumbled onto the asphalt. With no trees to support her hurt leg, the walk into town was going to be miserable. Okay. Thank you for sticking around. I enjoy reading my writing out loud, not because it's pleasant, but because it helps my ear pick up on the weird things that I'm including in my writing. So still definitely a lot of work to do, but I appreciate your guys' thoughts and sticking around with me. So hope to see you soon. Bye.